we have any questions in the room to start off with? If not, we can see if we have any questions from our remote attendees. Yes, sir, please.
I'll figure out how to run
This would be a question for Scott D. Last thing you mentioned was the stock virus living in control, basically in the container. What would be the probability in your mind that with all the equipment we get shipped from China in containers, that would be a risk factor?
Yeah, that's a great question. The stock virus control, I think that shows how stable this virus is, and other, like you're alluding to, other things could serve as fomites or vehicles for this virus as well. So it doesn't have to be in feed all by itself. It can live. And this was a 30-day journey, so to speak. And one thing I didn't mention is we put in products from over land and sea. So we tried to simulate what the cargo would actually feel or what the viruses would actually be exposed to during the study if it was moving from Asia to the U.S. or Eastern Europe. So we tried to make it as realistic as we could. And those temperatures and relative humidities, we rotated every day 4 times. So we had variable levels of those parameters. We didn't just put it in the refrigerator and let it sit. We actually tried to model what might happen on the land or over the sea.
Dr. D, this is Brett Marsh, and I appreciate you participating in today's meeting. A couple of questions as a follow-up to your slide. One is we hear about holding times. Is there anything you'd like to offer at this stage with regard to materials coming into the United States from abroad on holding times? The second question that I have received, so I'll share it with you, is are these infectious dose levels? So in other words, the virus may be there, but is it sufficient to infect swine? Those 2 questions are one I've had, so I'll share them with you.
Very good. Very good questions. The first question about holding time, we're actually doing some work now looking at what mitigants can we use to reduce the virus survival over the ocean. So is there a feed additive we can put into a ingredient, an important ingredient that we have to bring in, for example? And we have right now on African swine fever, that work isn't completed. It's being done at Kansas State University. Again, Megan Niederwerder is doing that. We did some mitigation work with Seneca virus, which is, is a great surrogate for FMD, and PEG virus, PERS as well. The good news was there were about 4 or 5 mitigants of the 10 we tested that could reduce those viral loads in feed to a workable level where if we stored the feed beyond that period of time, we could make it, basically take it from 5 logs down to less than 1. Which is kind of what I was shooting for. I don't want any of this in the country, independent of what the infectious dose is. So right now, if I had to suggest storage time, it'd probably be about a 30-day period. That's based on half-life data of this virus that we published in a paper. But I want that in conjunction with a mitigant. I think we really have to look at a 2-pronged approach where we treat the ingredient with an efficacious mitigant. We have time on our hands as it moves across the ocean. It goes into a storage facility and sits for 30 days. That would be the way I would do it right now if I had to if I'm answering your question.
Dr. D, several of the questions coming in online are really of that same ilk. The one that's a bit different here is what methods are available at the border to mitigate the entrance of the virus in feedstuffs?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear it.
Yeah, I was just saying that several of them are about timing and number of days of storage before use, things like that, things you've already discussed. This one here is asking what methods are available at the border to mitigate entrance of the virus in feedstuffs.
Oh, yeah. Right now, I don't think there's a lot in place. I think that's being discussed, but I don't believe that there is a standard plan at the border other than the inspection and then following the guidelines that have been in place in regards to properly importing products. It's such a new area that it's going to take a little time for us to kind of figure out what to do. So my recommendations on storage time and that are really my first attempt to try to understand that. And I think as we learn more information, we'll be able to maybe fine tune that a little bit. But yeah, we're really learning on the fly here because it's such a novel risk factor we hadn't really had to deal with prior to perhaps PED.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions from the go-to? Do we have any other questions from our audience here in the room today?
Yes, are you seeing this as being something is it inevitably going to wind up here? It's a matter of kind of if or when.
I'm worried about this situation. I think it's code red. I think we'll be under challenge possibly every day. With all the spread of the virus in China, I think our biosecurity systems are going to get tested. And that's why it was so important to be vigilant and get your own herd biosecurity up as high as it can. Some of the things that were being discussed with the previous speakers, that's what you can do today, is get back to that high level of biosecurity you had after PED. And also talk to your mills and understand where your ingredients are coming from. That'll give you a better understanding of risk. I have to compliment the feed industry. The feed industry has been very proactive with this. I've talked to vitamin manufacturers, many conversations, and they're looking at, well, why don't we mitigate the vitamins and then we'll store them and then they'll be safe to move off to milk, which I think is brilliant approach, being very proactive. And some of the blenders are already starting to do that by getting mitigants from the data that we've worked with into their facilities and looking at how they can treat those ingredients such as certain vitamins that we simply have to bring in from countries like China because we can't make them ourselves. So I'm concerned. However, I'm also optimistic that because of the way we're responding as an industry, it's very different than the PED situation. So it's a good thing.
We did have a question come in on Facebook Live asking what temperature is sufficient to kill the virus and what length of time that needs to be at that temperature.
That's an excellent question. I don't know that I have that information off the top of my head. Do you, Dr. Whirling?
So a lot of what I have been reading is that at 70 degrees Celsius, which I believe is 158 Fahrenheit, for 30 minutes is sufficient temperature to kill that virus. There have been a couple other temperatures, I guess, quoted potentially in some of our different resources that we've looked at, but that has been the one that I have seen the most frequently. So what else?
I have a comment. Mike Lemon, who's in China right now, asked me to share. As of today, 7 herds are confirmed in China. The Chinese government started paying out roughly $115 a head on every pig. It's typically smaller operations, 200 to 1,000 head. At least 2 of them were garbage fed and probably more. So yes, I share that to the participants today.
Do we have any other questions that we can answer? Yes, sir.
Is anybody working on a vaccine?
All right, so we just had a question from our audience, if anyone is working on a vaccine. I guess I can address that to a certain extent, and please feel free, anyone else, to jump in. So there has been work previously done with vaccine. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the virus, vaccine development is very difficult, so it doesn't provide complete protection either in subunit or DNA vaccines for this virus. In the Spain eradication, they did use a live virus vaccine, and that did offer complete protection, but of course provided other additional issues that we would not necessarily consider to be positive. So if they have live virus that is in the vaccine, that they're basically carrying that virus within their body. So not something that we consider to really be a viable vaccine option at this time. So as far as I know, current research is not being done or underway. Is that contrary to anyone else's knowledge?
That's my understanding as well. I'm not familiar with any that's ongoing.
So they've tried in the past and have not been able to create a successful vaccine. That's a good question, thank you. All right, do we have any other questions today? Looks like all of our online questions that have come in have been answered. I don't see anyone else in the room, so we again just want to thank you so much for participating, both taking the time out to come into Indianapolis today and participate in the discussion and joining us remotely if you weren't able to be here in person. We do hope that this discussion was beneficial for you. I'm sure we will have more conversations in the future as we move forward in our preparedness and trying to prepare for an outbreak such as this. So please don't be a stranger. Feel free to reach out to us here at the Board of Animal Health, as well as to Indiana Pork and any of our National Pork Board as well. We want to make sure that questions don't go unanswered and that we're able to really work collaboratively as we prepare for the future. So again, thank you so much. We will be around a little bit this afternoon, and we have the room till 3. So if anyone who's here today wants to just discuss or talk about anything, please feel free to reach out and talk to us. Also, we again just want to say that the Indiana Board of Animal Health does have a website specifically dedicated to the preparedness efforts for a potential ASF outbreak, but also for any foreign animal disease that could occur. So we do want to refer you to that as well for any future needs that you might need. All of the information that was presented by Dr. Cooper can be found there, as well as links to the pork.org website and Secure Pork as well. So again, we thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.